Hello again. This is part 2 for creating a grid for enlargement drawings. On the first part of this video, I showed you how to create a box grid, a 4-point grid. We already went over that. I'm going to show you how to do a 4-point grid, but using a smaller paper, which I measured and then I cut, that you will need just for this assignment. The one that says flower study number 1. The other ones, you can use the full paper, okay? Again, for the other assignments, any of the other assignments that I give you, you can use the 4-point grid or a 16-box grid, however you choose, whichever is easiest for you. I personally like to add more grids because the more boxes I see, I add, the easier it is for me to draw, because that's the way I think. Like, I think in little pieces and chunks. But for the flower study number 1, which looks just like this, you are going to measure a 7x7 inch box that looks like this, and then you're going to create a grid using that box. So that's what we're going to do right now. Again, we need to measure this paper. We need to measure 7 inches. Line up our ruler. 7. Draw a little mark going up. Another 7. I might be a little off because the light is, I'm having like the worst lighting problems. And then I'm going to align both of these marks, create my line. Remember, it's very important for you to create 2 different marks, because you're never going to draw a straight line. Just don't even try it. And then I'm going to do it on this side. Measure 7 inches. Again, where you place your marks, that's up to you. As long as there's 2 and they're a little bit far apart, that's fine. Align them, line them up. Remember, we do the straight line because you're going to flip your ruler over regardless, so it's easier. And now, if you want to cut it so it looks like this, you can. Obviously, you're going to cut it at the end. You don't have to, not right away. You're going to create a 4-box grid using this box alone, so it looks something like this. Okay, so you're no longer going to use this. Now we're going to measure. What's half of 7?
Is there something else I can help with?
That's my phone. Half of 7.
Sure,
no, there isn't. Half of 7 is 3.5. So we go and look for the 3. Sorry. And then the half. Remember, half is in between the 3 and the 4. Line going up. Again, 3.5. And remember, your ruler should be 12 inches, which is here. And every inch measures the same thing. 1 together and measures 12. So in between every inch is half an inch. And in between every half inch is 1/4 of an inch. It's like 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, $1. If you want to think about it as money, and if it's easier for you, that's great. So we have 2 marks, 2 guides. We line them up. Did I do that one? Okay. And then we create our straight line. I'm going to flip it this way because I already measured one side. And it measures exactly the same 7x7. 3.5. Let me try to get this straight so you guys can see it. Again, where I make my marks, it doesn't really matter as long as I leave space in between them. 3.5. Your ruler. I like to flip my ruler. I don't know. I feel like I have more control, but that's just up to you. So now if I look at this, it looks just like this one, but this one I've cut. So it's going to look like this. You can draw your flower, whichever one you choose. You're just going to choose one, And again, for all the assignments, it's the same thing. Whatever you see in the first box, you draw here. Whatever you see here, you draw here. And if it contains shading, you do it. We already had some shading activities. If this is really dark, you're going to shade it in really dark. Okay, and when you're shading in, which since I'm not there, it's hard for me to explain this. You don't shade in like this because you're not writing. You shade in from the side like this. And try to shade in going the same direction. Don't go scribble scrabble. Just if you're going to shade side to side, which is better, do it side to side so it's even. So the way you use your pencil and the pressure that you put on your pencil, it's even. Otherwise, it's going to look really messy. Okay? And then just look at the drawing. There's this big, I always think about it in sections, so I only see this, and if it helps sometimes, I like to section it off because I see everything as a whole. But if I isolate a section like this, now it's not a flower anymore. It's just shapes, lines, color. It's just like a basic line drawing. And now I see this, like I'll see this little piece right here, and that's just white. So I'll start and I'll think, oh, okay, this piece has to fit in this exact box here. And then whatever you want to isolate this one, whatever you see in this box, you have to isolate it. If you want to do a smaller grid, it's easier because you isolate more things. I myself would rather do a 16 box grid and 8 box grid because for me it's easier to see things in smaller pieces. Just like I mentioned in the Schoology, when you study, you don't study all the chapters at once. You do one chapter at a time, which is like chunky. Okay? So again, focus on one box at a time. And at the end, it's going to be enlarged. Like this is going to be enlarged to this. And trust me, you'll see that it makes a difference. It helps a lot when you're learning how to draw. This is another technique. Just like the upside down drawing is a technique, this is another technique that artists use to draw, especially when they're doing murals. They always use grids because the murals are so huge that things, are not in proportion, or things look kind of weird. And if you use a grid, you know exactly what your paper has, the same amount of boxes that your paper has. If it has 100 boxes, your mural will have 100 boxes. Okay, even if it's large or small, it's the same. So again, how do I do my 7 by 7 inch box? First, I measure 7 inches horizontally or vertically, 7 inches horizontally, and then from there I measure within the 7 by 7 inch box, and half of 7 is 3.5. That's how you create. That's how you find the center point of something, which is the middle, by dividing half of whatever it is. So half of 8 is 4, half of 7 is 3.5. Okay, so there it would look something like this. When you submit it, I want to see that you've cut your paper and your drawing fits in this little box, and trust me, I can tell. Okay, for that one. For this one, the first one that you're going to do, I already made a grid. But let's say that you lost it or you don't have one, then you're just going to have to use a drawing paper and then make a 16 box grid. It's the same thing as the 4 one, it's just more. Don't fold it. I don't want to see folded papers. This is not the other drawing that we did, the letter one. This is an actual like drawing. When it comes to drawing something and you're shading it in, it's always better to use the full paper like that, okay? So we're going to measure again. Let's say that you want to create a 16 box grid for this flower study because it's way too much and 4 boxes is not enough. You can do that. You can make as many boxes as you like as long as you do it to this one too. So you're going to have to go in and measure this and then measure however many boxes you have here are the same amount of boxes you have there. So if your grid is smaller, you're going to have to grid this too. That's the only reason why, I decided not to do more boxes because it's more measurements. But just in case you want to do it, you can. I'm just going to go over it in case you want to do it. So this paper is 9 by 12, 9 inches, about 9 inches. It might be a little off because when I was working on the kits, we had to cut massive paper, like this one huge sheet made for these. So the cutter is not always precise, so the way we cut is not always precise, and you might be a little off, which doesn't matter. I'm not going to sit there and measure everything, especially because you're going to send it digitally to me, and I'll see it at the end when I go back. But more or less, it's 9 by 12. And you always say the smaller number first, 9 by 12. And so half of 9 is 4.5. And half of 4.5 is 2 1/4. So when you are creating your grid, you're going to do you're going to make boxes that measure 2 1/4. And remember, the measurements, and I'll put them up just like I did last semester with the 1-inch starts, and then half of 1 is half an inch, and half of a half is, hold on, let me see, I might need the light for this. Okay, half of an inch is 1/4, so it's 0, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, 1 inch. 0, 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, $1. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 1/4 boxes going one way. We're gonna start again from this edge, and we're gonna measure 2 1/4 like this. You can keep the ruler like this if you're really good at measuring and just count them, or you can move it each time. Line it up to the line that you made where the ruler starts, which is this. Let me do it darker so you can see it. Line up your ruler to that, and then count 1, 2, and 1/4. And I will, on Schoology, I will post the 1-inch ruler like blown up so you can see where the 1/4 is. Again, I'm gonna move it this way, and then 2 1/4. I'm gonna do it again. 2 1/4. Line it up. 2 1/4. 2 1/4. Line up the marks that I just made. That's one. I took off the lighting because it has a glare, but I need it because it's really dark in here. And then I'm gonna again line up the guides. Remember, it's important for you to draw the line going up because the ruler is straight. 1 2 3 4, they all measure the same thing. About. Flip it this way. 12 inches. Half of 12 is it 12 inches? Yeah. Half of 12 is 6, and then half of 6 is 3. So you put your ruler where the 1 is, if I can see it myself, and then I look for the 3. This time it's easier because you're not using 4ths or 1/2, so I'm not even going to move the ruler. Every 3. So this is 3. I'm going to count 1 2 3. 1 2 3, which is 9, and there. I'm going to go up. 3. 1 2 3. 1 2 3, which is 9. And now I'm going to line them up. If you want your drawings to be more precise, I strongly suggest that you use this method. You can do 8 boxes. You can do 16 boxes. You just need to know how to measure. There you go. So if I look at this, and if I look at this, it has the same amount of boxes, just that this paper is smaller. Okay? So you're going to do this if you lose your paper for this one. Or let's say, like I mentioned, if you want to make your grid smaller for this one or for this one, especially when you're doing your self-portrait, I strongly recommend that you use the 16 boxes because that way you isolate your face even more. Like your eyes will be in one box and your mouth will be in another box. Your neck will be in another box. It's so much easier. It's harder to wait because you're gridding it, you're measuring, but once that's done, drawing it is so much easier when you have more boxes because, like I said, you are isolating a section even more. You're going deeper, you're going smaller. So it's always better.